So welcome back to our Python class, and we will continue our data wrangling. Again, something to do with horses, but instead of horses we are wrangling, managing data, of course. Right, so we were working with some pretty nice data sets which were almost pretty much already good to use. So of course sometimes the data, actually often the data needs to be reshaped, again managed, reshaped. So let's look at also another popular data set openly available is the TSA, transport security, was it called in America, for passengers data set. Let's take a look again. Also, this also applies to some common sets in Latvia as well, which I've seen. So we're going to read it. We're going to use parse dates. We're going to say, okay, this is the date column, right? We can of course check first. Always, if it's a CSV file, I like to check it first, see what's happening there, right? Unless it's really huge, right? You see date, right? Looks okay. It doesn't look too horrible, but it's not really a great format. So, so we're gonna say this is, we are indicating that we want to write that we use the date want to use the date column as a, well, not a column to new date column with as a date type, right? Sparse dates, right? So this is special parameter. In again, read CSV has all like about, I don't know, 50 or 60 different parameters, right? We're gonna pass a list of with a single item. Of course, if you had more columns, right? If you had more columns to parse dates, you would pass a longer list, right? A longer list. Okay, right. So let's read it. See if again we go back, right, to the data folder and read this file. And let's connect into our kernel. Right, it's not actually right. Name error, PD is not defined, right? Because, well, this is a new, I restarted Pandas, so I will move this up. Again, typically you want your, if you're starting your notebook in the middle somewhere, right, you probably will want to import at least Pandas, right? So this is, I'm going to move it away from, or I don't need taxis for a moment, right? So I will just import Pandas for now, right? Again, it's huge library by itself. On any other imports I would want here. So now I'll go back and I will go renaming, tab conversions. We did all that good stuff already, and we will do our date. We did sorting, which is also very useful, right? And now we are going to do reshaping. Okay, right. And this is actually I consider intermediate already difficulty, right? So we have throughput. We have dates. This is like May, throughput. But of course, this doesn't. I don't know if this makes really sense to me. Actually, of course, why is this date? Why are these dates changing? Actually, if you think of it again, first time, because, well, these looks like a date, right? This looks like. Of course, we'll do a info, right? So let's see what's happening. What do we call it? TSA, yeah, we call it TSA, so TSA info. Right, yeah, the datetime float in. Okay, well, different date types, okay. What I'm kind of curious, why is this, are these like time travelers? Is it 21, right, May 14th of May last year? Why is there change in these? It's probably from previous, right? So yeah, that's probably what it is, right? This is current, right, to the day. You have 1.7 million travelers in a day. That also seems crazy. Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe this is keep increasing. No. Strength is really 160,000, and this is, well, yeah, 20 of course makes sense. This is COVID time, right? So that makes sense. But these numbers, 19 is 2 million passengers a day. Is it really? Maybe it's all also planes, airplanes. Who knows? Again, we have to go pull the web page and see actually what data is, right? So okay, but again, let's do some manipulations. So very typical thing is we're gonna rename, right? We're gonna rename on columns. Basically, we'll go. We are going to pass for columns, right? We can give them a list, but we can also give so So instead of so we are passing a function, an anonymous function to apply to the column names, right? So rename, right? TSA rename, and columns are basically x lower split. So this is possible, right? This would work. I would say this is a little bit without using it. If you didn't know about this rename, right? We could do something even easier, right? We could do same. I'll show you my approach. What I would do first, right? I think it's a little bit easier. If you don't know about this rename column, you can basically use escape A, right? We could do this. So remember, our columns are here, right? Right, and what the column says, a lower split, right? We do a lowercase and split, and take the first split by white space, and start. Okay, so how would I approach this? I would do this. I would do something like this: new columns equals what? C lower, replace, no, lower, it's not lower, split, and then not just 0 for C in TSA columns, and then we'll see that these are just exactly the same thing, right? So this is same thing. You see same thing as the lambda approach here. So same result. Then I would pass it. And then I would assign, right? Something like this. Same approach, right? I'm sure you'll trust me on this, right? It will do the same thing, right? So the teacher, the other approach is using rename, right? It's up to you what you want to use. I usually use this. I think this is easier to, you just rename, you just pass a list. Here you have to know a little bit more syntax. Maybe you need to have a function which renames. Here we rename them, we rename the columns ahead of time. Here we sort of say, okay, rename, and then here's a function to rename them. But it's exactly the same thing. Okay, of course C or X doesn't matter, right? So, so we'll do this way. Let's see if it works. It should work fine. Yeah, exactly fine. Again, now we can start on reshaping, right? So melting is one of the approaches we can take. We can convert this data into a longer format. So we can have all the traveler true numbers in a single column. So documentation for melt function, it would be, yep, there we go. Thank you. Control click, and it is here, right? It is unpivot from a wide to long format, optionally leaving an identifier set. So it is useful to message data frame in a format where some columns are identifiers, right? There's some nice examples here. You can see some simpler examples if you want to learn more about it. But let's look at this example. So we have 4 columns, right? No index. Index for right now is nothing. So we're gonna create a new data frame, right? We are gonna create a new data frame. We are going to save results in a new data frame, right? So IDs. So by date row. Variable name is year and travelers. Let's see what happens. See if actually we can make sense of it. Okay, so we use the date, right? Let's see how did this work. Right, these are the years. These are how we melted it, right? So this is how we melted it. So date, year, of course, but still doesn't answer my question of let's look at shape. Right? If you see this shape was previously, we should probably compare the shapes, right? So what happened here? So TSA shape was on TSA melted, right? So let's compare them, right? So 365. And this is about 3 times more. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Okay, so melted, so it's longer format, right? So date, year, travelers, right? Basically, for each date, right? Actually, let's do, maybe this doesn't make much sense. Maybe it's better to see not just sample, right? It's not maybe that's obvious, but see, let's say head, melted, yeah, head let's say 10, 12, let's say. Right. Yeah, I think we can see it now. Hopefully. Okay. Well, it's now ordered by date, right? By year actually, but we can see sort values. So TSA sort values by date, right? TSA TSA melt sort values by date in place, not in place, true, just in place. I want to see this, just show you this. I don't want to, head 10, 12. Okay. Melted, right? Okay, right, now you see exactly what happened. Okay, do you see what happened now? So we have at each date used to have 3 entries, right? Used to have 3 entries here, right? 1, 2, 3. So we melted it backwards, right? So basically moving it basically this into here, creating a new column. We're gonna call it year, and then this data is sort of, so we make it 3 times longer, but well, much narrower, right? Again, so this is a melt operation, right? Or also you can call it unpivot, right? And if there's unpivot, there's also gonna be a pivot operation. Again, not something you need to do maybe every day, but quite powerful. Again, if you need this basically, right? So again, we took 3 columns and we created a single, moved all this data into a single column using this as additional column value, as you can see it right here, right? If you compare it, right, you have each date has 3 entries now for using the year. Okay, right, so that's unmelted, right? So then we are gonna do now the following up is we're gonna convert this into a time. We want to create time series, right? And let's see, and we want to reshape it, right? So melt on, replace the year with the one in the year column, right? So otherwise, of course, yeah. So this is the thing, yeah. Okay. Otherwise, we are just marking years with the wrong data. That's exactly what my hypothesis was, right? So we are going to assign date, right? So date column, we're gonna assign this data column, and we're gonna say, okay, function take the year plus all date. So basically, right? So basically, we're going to assign it on. Again, I'm not going to use sample, but we can use sample random state basically on. So basically, we are assigning this current date is going to become this year here plus the old date reminder, right? Date dt, right? We add this month and date again. There's lots of tricks here to learn, right? You basically add this extra. The reminder back. So basically you replace this part here with this part here, right? And sometimes again here, of course, this is not gonna make any difference. Let's take a look. We'll fix it because right, it's here. I would like to actually. I'm going to order it first. Actually, I'm gonna first TSA melted, right? Sort values, right, by date, right? But of course, by date, right? Let's do year, yeah, date year, right, head 12, right, in place, right, I'll do in place, right, I'll do in place true. I trust myself that I'm gonna do it correctly on the first try. Again, if you don't trust yourself, then of course you would assign to a new variable, right, and TSA melted head, let's take a look. Okay, yeah, so it's all sorted nicely, apparently ascending order, right? I didn't say any ascending. Okay, and now I can do this assignment, right? Let's do this. And again, I'm not going to do sample because I think it's not going to show. I'll do TSA head, melted head, right? Let's do 12, right? Okay, let's take a look now. All right, and now you can see exactly what happened. You see, we took this 220, we moved it here, right? Using this function, right? Again, you could, of course, you could do the same thing instead of assignment. What's the alternative? You could have used the function. What I would do, I don't use, well, again, assignment's nice, I mean, but if you don't want to go crazy with lambda functions, right? Maybe let's do this again. Well, I didn't save it. I should have saved it maybe, but yeah. If we could have used alternative approach, would be something like this. Let's try this. To assign, yeah, as type int, no, year, no, date equals what? No, we'll do this basically the same thing. So PD to datetime, right? We can use this approach here. Let's see if this works. I don't know if it's gonna work. Basically, come on. But we have a TSA melted plus TSA melted. And do we have any problem? We need one extra. Okay, let's see if this also works. And of course here, it should give you exactly the same results, of course, right? Right, this is what I would have done it, right? Again, same thing, basically, right? Basically, right, we say, okay, to see if this actually does work. I'll just do 5. Or does it work? Let's check. Control Enter. Yeah, so it works just fine as well. Of course, so anything you do, so 2 columns, assign below, right? So this is what I would have done. Of course, here doesn't nothing happen. If I added maybe, something else, right? So you basically combine 2 columns and go back to datetime, right? Because year was, remember, year is, I believe it's string. Yeah, year is string. Yeah, so because if you check, right, df ts melted again info, right, is a year is an object which is a string, right? So year again, the above worked because year is a string, right? And we had to convert datetime back to string to concatenate. Then we used PD to datetime to convert back to data. Okay, hopefully that makes sense, right? So yeah, so this approach, I personally like this approach a little bit. I think it's easier to understand, but this of course is completely fine. Again, Pandas is famous for having 3 or 4 different ways of doing things, even more, right? But it depends what you find more convenient, right? Assign, because again it's less stuff to learn, I think, right? But of course, if you remember, again, there's documentation, then you can find all the right functions. Again, reminder, Pandas assign function documentation equals, there we go, right? And you can see here as well if you want to check this documentation, right? Returns new objects is all original columns in addition to new ones. So this is very convenient to make new columns, right? So this again, you can see some simpler examples below. All right, so how are we doing this time? Hopefully we are doing good. Let's see, we have 18 minutes, so let's do a few more things we can do with data wrangling. Okay, so we have our long values, right? And yeah, sort values, date, right? Let's do it. Now we can sort by date, of course, right? Tail. Yeah, we can sort like travelers, none, right? Some null values, right? These are dates which are not present in data set, right? So basically, right? So we can use a very useful method called drop NA. Oh, it's just like with most methods, there is a again, just like with most methods, yeah, if you want. So in this case, we are not. So this again here we reassign. Here we use out of place method to reassign, right? Or, but we could have used in place again, right? I said, if you're not sure, again, typically I use out of place because maybe memory is pretty cheap, right? If it's not a huge data set, right, you can reassign, right? You have to keep track of all the extra things okay, we have 2 data frames, right? And have some new columns list, right? Not much, right? So okay, so we have sorted, drop an A, and let's check our tail, and there should be nothing. There's only real data, right? Here we didn't have December. We had, well, so why didn't we have data? Because this dataset was created in May, apparently, or maybe at least in middle of 2021, and apparently December, this means a couple months ago, well, had not happened yet, right? So that's why we had none numbers, of course, right? So again, try to follow when you work with data. Of course, try to make, well, try to kind of always have a little sanity check if you want to, you know, make a sense. You know, does data make sense, right? If it doesn't make sense, then you need to go over again your steps, and of course notebooks make it make it easy to retrace your steps and check your state, your data state at each moment. All right, so now we did our melt. We can also pivot, right? So now we can pivot data to compare it across specific days. So this is pretty cool stuff. We're going to do a query. We're going to check months is 3 on date less than 10, because of course this will be March, only on March. So day in March, we're going to create so basically we do this. We have our data frame. We do a query, right? Check for a date is 3rd months. DT months equals 3 because date has a DT months method, right? And then we have a DT day less than or equal than 10. So first 10 days of the March. Again, just, you know, because we don't want to do 360, we don't want to pivot to 365 days, right? We're just going to do 10 days in March. Okay, and then we're going to make day in March is going to be the day, right? That's our, let's do this before the pivot. I think we should do this first. Let's do this first so you can see before what happens before the pivot, right? So we're going to escape A, right? First day 10, first 10 March, right? First 10 days in March, right? Right, and this should do it, right? Okay, assign. Is everything okay? It looks okay to me. All right, and head. Well, looks okay. Yeah, this is all first day dance in March. You can see they are also how nicely filtered. So we have 19, 20, 21, 19, 20, 21, 19, 20, 21, right? So this is, of course, what shape it is. It is gonna be first 10 days in March. It's gonna, we can see it, of course, here it's 30, right? Makes sense, right? Shape, right? Right, makes sense because, of course, you know, makes sense. Makes sense to have 30 since rows because in March on 3 years, right? Hopefully that is all makes sense so far. And now we can do the pivot. So pivot, documentation for pivot, Pandas documentation for pivot table, right? Yep, there we go. Pretty cool stuff. Actually, I'll do pivot. I'll just do pivot, right? Right, so it's probably pivot. Let's see that. There's also some extra functions. Let's see if this is correct one. Yeah, pivot. So the shape based on column values, right? So it uses unique values from specified index columns and creates cross-axis. Again, very cool stuff. Again, you have, maybe some of you have worked in Excel to do this, right? To reshape the columns, right? So some people are scared of pivot. It's nothing to be too scared, right? We are just reshaping our data, right? You can see, but let's look at this example here. So we have our 30, so I expect something like this, right? This is what we have. So we are gonna pivot by what? Pivot is gonna be, index is gonna be year, right? And columns are gonna be day in March, and values are gonna be travelers. Okay, day in March. We have day in March. Yes, we do have day in March here, right? Right. So that's gonna pivot that. So this is gonna be, these values are gonna be our columns. Travelers are gonna be our actual cell values, right? And year is gonna be the index, right? Yeah, year is gonna be index. And our date is gone, right? We're not using date at all here, right? So again, up to here, we just have a data frame, right? Or the first days in March, and then we pivot it. Again, notice how we are chaining. Remember, we talked about our classes on how you can do return self. So this is what's happening here. It keeps returning a data frame, right? So you return, right? And again, Pandas is not the only library which does this, and not only language which does this, right? So you can keep working with some sort of data frame, right? Because each of these methods return a data frame, right? Query returns a data frame. If you can see it here, it returns a data frame. Okay, assign returns a data frame, and pivot returns a data frame. So you can keep working. You can chain instructions. Okay. Let's take a look if this also works. All right, so it works nicely. So we went from this type of, right? Of course, we start with the longer one. So we also had the filter first, an assignment, right? Day in March, we call this, right? You know what date is on. Then we extracted from the date. We extracted this the day of the you know of the months, and now we pivoted. So now we have information for days in March, right, in very convenient format, and of course we can save it on also we can save this little tiny spreadsheet into your CSV or Excel or JSON or even text, right? Okay, yes. Also, there's some other more commands like unstack and stack. Again, this is something which would be very beneficial to do it, cover it in maybe a deeper course. Okay. Right, maybe again, if you stick with me, we'll do this more in depth in a following course. All right, so yes, I mentioned already, I think previously, there's a T, right? We can do this, right? If you don't like your click, flip, right? Of course, if I do TT, right, you'll go back, right? Right, right. Of course, that's the job, right? So here we go, right? On now, on. Also important operation is merging, right? So if you have two columns, I don't want to say database. We'll get to database probably this week or next week. We want to add some information, about this. We have some holiday information, so it's very typical when you want to combine two different data sets, right? Two tables, right? So merge can be quite helpful here, right? So what are we going to do is we have holidays. Let's check. We'll check for 2019, right? Holidays 2019. Again, this is pre-COVID, of course, but again, New Year, this American holidays, of course, right? So you have a nice little table. We have these dates, right? So we want to have some context, right? Because of course, why? Because we're probably going to analyze, see what's happening on those dates, right? These are probably much busier travel dates. Again, I think you can see where this is going, right? So a New Year's Day, right? Some some major holidays. Some of these match our own. Let's merge it. So we have our melted holidays. First, we're gonna melt, right? And then we are going to, right? So we have melted. Right, we have our TSA melted. We're going to merge these holidays, and we are going to do left on. So that's what this means is we are melted. This melted has to have it, right? It's so-called left join, right? We'll do with SQL database. We'll work with this as well, right? So basically, we're saying or in this merge, we are saying that add holiday. There's two TSA melted, and of course, right, and date column as the key, right? So let's try this because both this has date and also TSA melted has date, right? Of course, I'm sure you can remember that by now, but TSA melted, head 3 has date, right? So these are we're gonna use it to melt. So let's try it, and we're gonna sort by value. So New Year should be first, right? I hope. Yep, you see, New Year's Day match because we had a match, right? We had a match. Other dates, we only had like 5 dates, like 8 dates, right? So rest of them will be not a number, right? Because not a value, right? So pretty cool, right? So we merged again. We merged also many more parameters, right? You can append also. We can do a concatenation, which also another concatenation is when you have multiple similar data sheets, but you want to, you know, merge on top of it, right? Rows, you know, you just keep adding data. You have many similar data sets. That's another another function we use quite a bit. Okay, and let's see if we can finish this today. We are almost out of time for this. And all right, we can do some. Oh, but this again, I think this is already, I think, a little bit too much. But you can do this. You can do funny, cool stuff like this. You can assign holidays to actually forward and backwards, right? So say that this is also a holiday. Very cool stuff. You say, okay, assign holiday, right? We already had our TSA melted holidays, right? And we gonna assign to holiday. Remember, we have this, right? We want to assign a few days around it, right? So we say this fillna method forward fill limit 1 and fillna backwards fill limit 2. So this means 1 day extra on top, 1 day backwards top. Again, pretty powerful stuff. Let's see what happens, right? Let's see if this works exactly. Again, let's do 5, right? Will it work? Yeah, you see, actually limit 2, I guess, backwards fill, forward fill 1, right? Of course, if I did forward limit 3, right? You see, 1, 2, 3, right? I had 3 days, right? So hopefully you can see what's happening. So 2 days. So no, I can't do this here. So I can't do it here. So added. So we yeah, for 2 rows. Okay. Hopefully this makes sense. Let's see also what day do we want to see, what our holidays are. Let's do, we can see also all known holidays. So let's see, let's pick, select all rows where holiday. How does AI know what I want, exactly what I wanted to say, right? So, right, query, not null, right, head 5, right, let's do head like 10 so you can see exactly what happened, right? Right, so New Year's Day, so Memorial Day is actually 27th, no, 27th, right? And I forgot to do this, yeah. So of course, the only thing is notice something happened, right? Since I queried, right? Let's do it over again. No, what happened here? fillna. I think I must have some extra card. You can't. Okay. No. I need to do this, I guess. Yeah, I need to do this apparently, right? No. Which line? Oh, limit 1 here. There's there's some garbage here. Sorry about that. Yeah, okay. I don't think I need this one. Let's try this. Yeah, okay, it worked, right? So 1, right? And now let's do this over again. Yeah, you can see now exactly, right? So 27th was actual Memorial Day, right? Of course, obviously, this is even easier, right? So July 4th was the actual day. Let's do like maybe head 12. You can see this exactly, right? So July 4th was the actual date, and we filled some extra values backwards and forwards. So also a very powerful technique for adding some extra data and some context. Okay, right? So lots of extra stuff. Let's see what else can we do today. Let's see. Again, there's fillna method, good for filling out values, because dealing with non-existent values is part of the job of a data engineer. Is when you decide. Sometimes you need, of course, just leave it blank, right? But sometimes you have some other options, right? Such as interpolation, right? Maybe using a mean and other things. Okay, so Thanksgiving in 2019 was on November 28th. So 26, 27, 29 were filled. Since we're only replacing null values, we don't overwrite Christmas Day, right? With forward, Chris, right? So let's check, right? Right, so thanks. Yeah, exactly. Very nice. All right. So now that we have our data, one of the most common operations, again, maybe to me at least more common than melting and pivoting, right, is to use aggregations. We'll cover that in our next lecture.